Hi everyone, really good to see you today. Matthew Kennedy here. I am doing my discussion one board for Module 3, Week 3 on Chinese and Indian mathematics. And the article that I chose to read was the second article by Loretta, and it was a mathematical history tour. And it didn't really directly connect to, all about Chinese and Indian mathematics. There were some other mathematical, historical just viewpoints, math history facts that even dealt with the Greeks, Egyptians, math history in general, and why we should appreciate it. But in general, that's a good article because we see almost like this like scale. When I look at the cultures of mathematics and their advancements, last week we did Egyptian. We see that we have, we'll say on the far right, we have the Egyptians. And the Egyptians advanced math to really have a functionable society. We have agricultural farmland. We have to tax it. How are we going to figure out the area? Well, we can start off by doing elbow lengths. We could do, they had to figure out a way, right? And they had their own measurement systems, even for cooking, even for rations for bread, to sell things fairly, to in the market and all that stuff, and accounting system to trade. And that's kind of how the Egyptians went about it. In the article, the Greeks were all the way over here on the left. And it's like polar opposites. The Greeks, they kind of already had a functionable society. They already had a way to live life. But they advanced mathematics kind of for their fun. I'm not really sure how true that is, but it's what I read. But the Greeks, they had a lot of leisure time. And when you have leisure time, it means you kind of got to do things, right? You're bored. And what they did was they said, hey, look, let's prove mathematics. And that's where the Euclidean axioms came in, the Euclidean postulates, and Archimedes, and how he had so much time going about pi, right? And it's just like, you take those two viewpoints, way different. You're advancing mathematics in Egypt to literally live life and advance society and make your living life better and make it functionable. And then the Greeks, they kind of did it for fun, and they kind of did like some proof theory. And if I had to compare those two to real life, I would say the Egyptians are kind of like calculus 1, 2, and 3 for our undergraduate degree here at BGSU. You go about calc 1, 2, and 3, right? Yeah, you got to get through it. You got to understand calc. It's more computational. We're gonna have calc 1, 2, and 3. We're gonna get through it. We're gonna pass it to advance our degree. And kind of like how the Egyptians did it, hey, look, we have math, let's figure out math, let's try to come up with like systems we can use to function in our everyday lives. Whereas over here, we have, I'm going to compare this to modern algebra. I don't know if you guys took modern algebra. I know 4110 people have, I don't know about 5110. But when you take modern algebra, it's about proving things, right? Well, I understand that you understand this, but can you show why it'll work for all values of n, right? It's proof. It's proof. And proof takes time. And it shows your furthermost understanding of the content at hand. And that's what the Greeks did. They didn't just do calc 1, 2, and 3, we're going to get by, we're going to get the grade, move on, whatever. And like, I'm not saying that math is just about the grade or about whatever, but if I had to choose a class where it's like we're there for the answer, calc 1, 2, and 3, but you take courses like modern geometry and modern algebra here at BGSU where it's like, how can we really prove things? And that's what Greek and the Greeks were all about in their free time, was how can we prove things, right? So we had this scale. Where do the Chinese and Indians fall? Somewhere in the middle. And I know I spent the first 4 minutes talking about the Greeks and the Egyptians, but it sets the framework for this video. when we talk about the Chinese and the Indians and their mathematical advancements, they essentially did go about math in a way where it was like, let's use it for practical use in the world around us. They didn't just do it just for theory and leisure time, but they also didn't do it just to function in their society. It's somewhere in the middle because yeah, they did use it for practical and societal like needs, but they sought to do it for more advanced ways than the Egyptians did. For example, they used, right angle triangles, and they try to figure out that sine proportion. When I take a sine, I get an angle, right? It's going to be the proportion. Like if I did the sine of 30 degrees, it's 1 over 2, 1/2. That means that the longer leg is going to be 2 times bigger than the shorter leg. And they use that to figure out the distance between the moon and the sun and the earth. And like they were able to use it for, okay, how can we use it for more practical reasons? It's still practical. They're still using math, not just, it wasn't just the Greeks where, I mean, the Greeks still use it for practical reasons too, but like, I feel like the Greeks, they weren't so worried about the application. They weren't as worried as the Chinese and Indians were. How can we advance our society, build walls on the Great Wall of China, right? Architecture, just, in general, how can they go about their lives to make their society better? And I feel like, again, the difference between the Chinese and the Egyptians were, the Egyptians, I feel like literally they couldn't live life without their mathematical findings. The Chinese, I feel like they kind of already had a way of doing things, but they felt like there was more they can do, and they sought to go about math in a more advanced way, geometric series, right, from the BBC video. Now we're going to get more in the videos here, but the goal of the first 7 minutes was going over the article and the cultures of mathematics from a history perspective. But, you really think about, in the BBC video, first of all, what 0 means, because that was kind of the beginning of the video. They were able to really see, and like I was kind of confused from that video because I wasn't really sure if the Chinese invented 0 or the BBC video guy was kind of just saying, look, this is, when and where they discovered 0 in their mathematical work. But, the Chinese place value system, definitely, even Indian, pretty close to today's system. I'm not saying it's the exact system, obviously, but their decimal system was definitely pretty advanced. Far better and superior than the Egyptian. Less flaws. And honestly, I think answering the prompt to the discussion board, I would definitely say that if I had to first of all say what were some of the reasons why they developed mathematics, the Chinese and the Indians, well, it kind of goes back to the first 7 minutes of this video. It's kind of saying they advanced mathematics for practical reasons in their everyday life. But not just practical reasons for practical use. It's also like there's also that aspect like the Greeks where it was like, hey, look, I want to challenge myself. I want to find things that have not been found before. And like I said, geometric series, and even going to with those sine distances and the triangles, all that stuff. So the Chinese definitely, even cubic equations. Obviously, quadratics were really kind of started with the Egyptians, but cubic functions of a high degree power, and also how they discovered pi. You take 4, you subtract 4/3, and then I think it was you add a third, subtract a fifth, add a seventh, minus a ninth, and you keep going until you keep going up to infinity, and you get closer and closer and closer to pi. And the Chinese, in the BBC video, it kind of explained how they approximated pi from the Chinese perspective. But like even going to the third video about the Indian mathematics, in that video, there's definitely ways that the Indians went about mathematics that was, again, rather quite interesting. With the whole planetary system and how they went about, finding distances with the planets, how they went about solving, algebraic, manipulation, all that stuff. And really, I would say the Chinese and the Indians, again, going back to the prompt, I would say that they were ideally the same ideas. I can't say that it was exactly the same. It is two different civilizations. But if I had to put two cultures that went about math, like they're the closest to being similar, it's definitely Chinese and Indian. I really think that honestly, like their mathematical work, like even watching the BBC video, like it talked about how like the I think it's not called monarchs, it's like the emperors, because different terminology for different rulers. In China, they call it emperors, right? So the emperors, I think what really interested me was how some emperors actually were mathematicians. Pretty weird, huh? So I feel like, again, it kind of goes back to kind of just being driven. China and India, they were very driven in their mathematical work, and they went about math both from, hey, let's make life practical, and also, hey, like the Greeks, how can we really take math a step further? And I think geometric series really say a lot in their findings. And I really just want to conclude the video by kind of saying, I really think the Chinese and Indians were very advanced in their mathematical thinking. And I really think that definitely if you compare the East versus the West, I would say the East, they definitely seemed like more sophisticated, they seemed more advanced in their thinking, whereas the West was a bit behind. And honestly, I don't really know, like, I'm not, a big, history guru. I can't really tell you why that is. But if I had to guess, I would probably just say it's because, it's all about what you kind of feel is important for your culture. I feel like the Chinese and the Indians, they really appreciated mathematics. They really appreciated, just in general, they appreciated things that were complicated. They really enjoyed that problem solving, elicited thinking. Whereas probably the West, we probably had other issues at hand. And we just didn't have that drive that I feel like the East had. But yeah, that's my video, that's my discussion board. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys for the next discussion board. Bye-bye.